Most of us believe that if it looks good, it feels right, and it checks the boxes, then it must be God. But what do you do when the very thing you prayed for is the thing God tells you to release? I turned down the man that I thought was my dream, and it made absolutely no sense at the time. But that decision taught me something I wish more believers understood. God doesn't withhold good things from you. He withholds what looks good, but isn't. If you've ever struggled to trust God when his direction doesn't match your expectations, this video will change how you see those closed doors and explain why God's plans are always better than ours. Hi, I'm Rossi, and I help believers upgrade their mindset and their mission while growing deeper in God. And if this video blesses you, I hope you'll share it with someone else. I need to tell you a story that completely changed how I trust God's plan. I had just graduated from college, and at that point, my life was supposed to flow in a pretty clear order. Get a job in my field, get married, and start building a future. Around that time, I met a guy through mutual friends. And as I got to know him, he was checking all the boxes. He was attractive, educated, stable, had a good career. He made me laugh. And the most important thing to me, he went to church. I had my list and I was checking it twice, and he fit. And it wasn't just a casual situation. This was somebody who I could picture building a future with, and he felt the same. My friends liked him, and everything about the relationship looked right. But since I'm an intentional person, I wanted to pray about the situation. So I told God, I don't want to waste time. I don't want to be brokenhearted. The next relationship that I enter into, I want that to be my husband. And after I prayed that prayer, God told me to end it. And I was confused. I remember praying like, God, are you sure? Because we don't be throwing away good men. It ain't like, they come around that often. So I needed to make sure I was hearing from God. But God was clear. Ended. Even though I didn't understand, even though it didn't make sense, even though the people around me thought I was crazy and I wasn't 100% sure, I obeyed God. And here's what most people don't realize. We all have our own plans. We know what we want for our relationships, our career, our future. And most of the times those plans don't look bad. But here's the thing about God. God is not a planner. He is the planner. He's strategic and intentional, and not one thing happens that he didn't see before time. We're out here playing checkers and God is playing three-dimensional chess. We're making decisions with limited information and God is operating from a full perspective. But what if I told you that God has a plan for your life that's so much better than what you can imagine? If you're watching this feeling disappointed or frustrated or confused by a door that closed, I want to help you understand why surrendering your plans is not about losing control. It's about gaining peace and clarity and living the life that God wanted for you all along. So the first thing is, I want to convince you that God's plans for you are good. Whatever you can imagine for your life, God has better. After I ended that relationship, I struggled with a question that I think a lot of us struggle with, and that is, does God really have good plans for me? Or is he just trying to teach me a lesson by keep asking me to give up what I want? Because here's what happens when we don't understand that God's plans towards us are good. We start seeing God like a boogeyman, like he's somewhere in the background, like terrorizing our lives. He's up in heaven saying, oh, is that what you want? Well, you can't have it. So we have this flawed view of God and his plans towards us. But that's not how God is, and that's not how he operates. God is not withholding good from us. He's withholding what looks good, but may not be his best plan for us. Because if you don't believe that God has good plans for you, you will always struggle to live your life surrendered to him. You'll always be fighting against God's will and second guessing and trying to negotiate with him. But listen to what the Bible says about God's plans toward you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Plans for good. That means God's plans for you are not just tolerable, they are actually good. And then Psalms 84:11 says, for the Lord our God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. The Lord will withhold no good thing from those who do what is right. Did you catch that? No good thing. So God is not the takeaway man. He's not the boogeyman. He will withhold no good thing from you if you live right. If God is withholding something from you, that means it's not good for you. The relationship that I ended, it looked good, but it was not good for me. Because his heart towards me is good, he directed me away from it. Here's what I want you to settle in your heart. God's plans for you are not just different. They are better. His plans for you are better than what you could plan for yourself. When God closes the door, he's not punishing you. Most of the time, he's protecting you or preserving you for his better plan. So stop mourning anything that God has removed. Celebrate that he is guiding you because of his love for you, because of his good plans for you. See, the thing is, God doesn't take away something and then replaces it with less. When God takes away something, he's preparing you for better. He's preparing you for greater. That's the nature of who God is. God's nature towards you is good, and his plans towards you are good. And when you trust that, when you believe that, surrendering to his plans becomes so much easier. The next thing I want you to understand is that God's plans are based on what he sees, not what we see. After I ended that relationship, you can imagine that I had some lingering questions. Did I make the right decision? Did I throw away my one chance at happiness? That one lingered for a while. When you're standing on the other side of obedience, it doesn't feel like obedience. It feels like loss. But I had to understand that God sees in a way that's different from how I see. I saw a good man, but God saw the full picture. The Bible says that he knows our end from our beginning. So he didn't just see the young college graduate me. He saw who I would be in 20 years, right? He knows our end from our beginning. So God is seeing the full picture. We see down the street, God sees around the corner. Because when we try to make plans, we make it according to our own perspective. We see today, we see what's in front of us. We see what looks good right now. But God, he sees tomorrow. He sees the outcome before we take the first step. God has what we call divine providence. Well, what is providence? That means God sees before. That's literally what it means. It means before vision. And we might be able to see what's right in front of us, but God sees what is coming. He sees it before it happens. Where you sit determines what you see. And since God sits on high, he can see from a totally different vantage point. So here's what I want you to do. Stop trying to force your plans to work and ask God, what is your plan for me in this situation? What do you see that I don't? When doors close and relationships end and opportunities fall through, ask him in the middle of that situation what he's trying to accomplish in your life. The reason we don't understand what God is doing most of the time is because we can't see what he sees. And if we could see it, we would stop fighting his plan and start trusting it. And if you're struggling to trust God right now, I've created an affirmation guide full of scriptures that you can stand on regarding God's plans and his goodwill for your life. You can download it at the link in the description. Let this be a tool that helps you realign your thoughts about God's plan for your future. Here's the problem. Our plans are selfish. While God has a plan for us, we have a plan for ourselves. And most of the time, those plans are based on what we think, what we want, and how we feel. Your mind tells you what it thinks, your will tells you what it wants, and your emotions tell you how you feel. And that is how most of us make decisions. That's how we go about planning our lives. The problem is, none of those things consider God in the equation. We trust ourselves way more than we trust God. We trust our logic. We trust our feelings. We trust our intuition. And because of that, our perspective becomes one-sided. We're not asking God, what do you want? We're asking God to bless what we want. We make a plan and then ask God to bless it after. And that's a dangerous place to be. Living a surrendered life means that you want God's plan above how you feel or what you think you know or what your desires are. Think about Peter in Luke 5. They had been fishing all night and they caught nothing. He was exhausted, frustrated, and ready to give up. And Jesus shows up and says, hey, Peter, put your nets down on the other side. Peter's a professional fisherman, so his mind is telling him, we already tried that. I already used that strategy. I already know that's not going to work. His emotions are telling him that he is frustrated, he is tired, and he's ready to go to bed. His will is telling him, I just want to go home. But instead, Peter has a response that changes everything. In verse 5, he says, Master, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets again. Notice what he said, at your word, not my logic, not my emotions, not how I feel, not what my gut told me. Lord, at your word, I will let down the net. And what happened? He got such a big haul of fish that the nets began to tear. We spend our lives looking for provision when if we would only trust God, he will show us exactly where it is. Everything good you want in your life, God also wants that for you. And he knows where the path to provision is. So follow his plan and not yours. Stop letting your mind, your will, and your emotions make your plans. Instead, do like Peter and say, Lord, at your word, I will. That's when the breakthrough happens. That's when provision shows up. And that's when God proves to you that his plans were better than yours all along. And here's something I want to mention because it trips a lot of people up. There are times in your life where it's a silent season. And so you may feel like I don't really have a lot of plans going on. I'm just kind of going through the motions of life right now. But there's value in those seasons as well. Those are what I like to call the silent years. They are years when there's really nothing going on in your life. It feels stagnant. Sometimes it could feel boring. These silent years, they're just as important as the active years. Think about Jesus. We hear about Jesus when he's 12 and he's in the temple. And then we don't hear anything else about Jesus until he's 30. So what was happening in those years? Luke 2:52 says, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and all the people. So in those 18 years of silence, Jesus grew. He matured. He grew in favor. Those silent years, they were not wasted. They were preparation. If you're in this kind of silent season, don't despise it. Don't rush it. Don't try to force something to happen because you're bored or impatient, especially if you kind of had this great vision for your life, right? Or there's something God showed you. You might feel impatient or want to rush through some things. Ask yourself, what is God trying to develop in me right now? What character is he building? What is he cultivating? Because when that season shifts, and it will shift, you're going to need everything that he was building in you during this time. So here's something in the context of thinking about God's plans that really bothered me growing up. God's plans don't always match our expectations. Now, the reason I say it bothered me growing up is because of some of the teaching that I heard. I was taught that God's will or God's plan for your life would always be something you didn't want. So why then, as an adult, would I want to consult God for his plan for my life? My pastor would say stuff like, you might be called to preach in South America. And I bet South America is a beautiful place. Never been, would love to go. But I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to live there. And so every time we had a message about like God's plans, it was always God forcing you to do something that you didn't want to do. How I interpreted that as a young person was that God's plan for my life was always going to be contrary to what I wanted. And that can be true at times. There are times where God calls us to do something that stretches us or it pulls us in the direction he's trying to take us in. But God also put desires and the way we're wired. He put that inside of us. Psalm 37:4 says, take delight in the Lord and he will give you your heart's desires. God gives you the desires of your heart. In fact, a lot of times the desires that you have in your heart are God-given. How you're wired is tied to his plans for your life. When it comes to God's plan, God is not trying to make us miserable. He's not in heaven thinking, what's the one thing that person hates? Now let me make them do that. No, God designed you. He wired you. He fashioned you with the desires and the leanings that you have. And those things align with God's purpose for your life. Now, disclaimer, here's the kicker. It doesn't always look like you think it will. A couple of years ago, I was evaluating my life goals and I was trying to figure out, like, what is my motivation? Like, what is my motivation? Why am I here? Right? I was having that moment. I discovered that one of the things that was essential to the core of who I am was that I really wanted to leave an impact. I really wanted to make a mark on the world. And I thought that I would do that by creating a nonprofit. I had been, in my whole career, nonprofit leadership. So I thought I was going to create a nonprofit and leave some type of legacy, help a group of people or something like that. That's how I thought I was going to have an impact. And then God tells me to start a YouTube channel. And turns out this is a way that I'm having a massive impact. Now, I've only been doing this for a little while, but when I look at all the countries where people are listening and people are saying, hey, this message really blessed me. And hey, I shared this with my girlfriends. And hey, I shared this in my book club. When I look at that, I knew I wanted to make an impact, didn't know how, but God's plans, different from mine, but to the same goal. And his plan ended up being better than what I thought for myself. Do you see what I'm getting at? I had a plan, but God's plan is better. Stop trying to dictate to God what your purpose should look like. Instead, surrender yourself to him and say, God, I know the plans I have, but what are your plans for me? And how does my desires tie into the work and the things that you've called me to do? When you do that, you'll discover that God's plans don't just fulfill you, they exceed what you thought was possible. So let's get back to the beginning, the story that I was telling you about. How did that story end? So I meet the guy, good on paper, checking the boxes, and then God says end it. Well, what happened next? After God told me to end the relationship, he said something that I'll never forget. He said, when I send your husband, I want your heart to be completely open. That gave me hope because I'm like, okay, so you want me to clear out my heart, which means hopefully that you send in the right person, right? And that's exactly what God did. 3 months later, I met my husband. And I will be honest, he did not look like the dream on paper. He wasn't checking all the boxes like the other guy was. But I trusted God. If I had still been clinging to my own checklist and what I thought, I would have missed out on one of God's best blessings for my life. God knew what I needed and not just what I thought I wanted. Our marriage was not perfect. I've shared some of those early struggles on this channel. But the challenges we faced, they were not because we were wrong for each other. They were just part of two people growing and healing and building something together. And almost 20 years later, I can say with confidence, God gave me someone tailor-made for my personality, for my journey, for my calling, and for my purpose. Now listen, I'm sure the other man became a great husband to somebody else. He just wasn't for me. He wasn't my husband. And I will take God's plan and a 20-year healthy, successful marriage over something that looked good on paper. Let me give you one more quick example, something that happened recently. I just started looking for a car, and this was a big moment for me because this was the first time that I was going to buy the car I actually wanted, not just the car that I could afford. I found the car I wanted. I put a deposit down, got the car inspected because it was in another state. So I needed to make sure it was, a good car, and everything looked right. Except I didn't have joy. It was the right make and model, but it wasn't the exterior color I wanted, and it wasn't the interior color I wanted. And I kept telling my husband, I feel like I'm settling. I feel like I should have more joy, but I'm settling because the car that I want and the spec that I want, I don't think it exists. And I knew it didn't exist because I was willing to have the car shipped from anywhere in the United States. So I pray about it because I just felt like I should be happier about this purchase. And God tells me, don't move forward with the purchase. Wait until Monday. So I waited. Monday morning, I wake up, I refresh my listings, and here is the car in the right color, in the right interior color, with the right specifications, with all the upgrades that I was going to pay to have them add to the other car, already tinted, already blacked out, already brake calipers that's painted to match custom. Everything about this car was exactly what I wanted. And it was only $1,000 more than the car that I was about to purchase. And it was a model year newer. There was nothing wrong with the first car, but me acknowledging God revealed that God has better. He knew exactly what I wanted, where it would be, and when it would show up. Here's my challenge to you. Stop fighting God's plan. Stop mourning what didn't work out. Stop trying to force yourself in doors that He already closed. Because the same God who shut that door is going to open another one that you didn't know existed. Trust God with all the plans for your life because His plans are so much better. Well, that's been it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to grab the affirmations guide, and my Access to Abundance blueprint is also available at the link in the description. And until the next time, remember, if you change your mind, you'll change your life.